Let's now turn to the other Indian neighbour, that is Bhutan. The country's Prime Minister was in India to attend the oath-taking ceremony of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Earlier this week, we sat down with Tshering Togbay. We asked him about his expectations from Prime Minister Modi's third term, the Bhutan-India relationship and how India can boost its neighbourhood first policy. We also asked him if India is drifting away from its neighbours. What was his perception? Listen to what he had to say. Prime Minister of Bhutan, Tshering Togbay, welcome to Firstpost.
Thank you very much. It's an honor.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Delighted to be here. Delighted to be with you.
Thanks. You attended Prime Minister Modi's third swearing-in ceremony. How was it?
It was grand. It was a celebration of hope. There's a lot of optimism. It was palpable. I was honored to be there. This is my second time. I was here in 2014, also during his swearing-in ceremony. And it's such an honor to represent His Majesty the King and the people of Bhutan at this very important and momentous occasion.
What are your expectations from Narendra Modi in his third term as India's Prime Minister?
My expectations? Well, you look at Modi 1.0 and then you see Modi 2.0, and looking at the track record, you can, I think, confidently say that 3.0, Modi 3.0 is going to be bigger and better. I think you're going to enjoy increasing returns. This is going to be a demonstration of the law of increasing returns. For Bhutan, I can very confidently say that our relations, which are already strong, are going to emerge even stronger under the new government and under Prime Minister Modi for his third term. For the region, I think there's a lot of room for optimism also. And if you extend it further, the global south is going to benefit with Prime Minister Modi as the leader of India.
In the last 10 years that he's been Prime Minister, how has the India-Bhutan relationship in particular evolved according to you?
Well, it's grown from strength to strength. India-Bhutan relations are unique, are special in that the relations have always been strong, based on trust and understanding and mutual respect. But in the last 10 years, I can say with confidence that it has gone up to even higher levels, and I am honored. I've been very fortunate to play a small role in that.
Even the best of relationships have ups and downs and challenges. What are the challenges of this one?
Well, the challenge is we need to be mindful. India is growing very rapidly. And we need to be mindful that we need to also work hard and ensure on the one hand that we benefit from India's inevitable growth, but we also stay relevant. And we've got to make sure that we continue to nurture the relationship. It cannot be nurtured by one part alone. And India and Prime Minister Modi ji is doing a lot to nurture our relations. So we've got to do a bit.
Bhutan is betting big on the Gyelephu Mindfulness City, which is a very ambitious smart city project. And I understand that you're also looking at some sort of Indian investment there. What is it that makes this particular project stand out? How is it different from other such initiatives?
Well, we are not betting on the Mindfulness City project. The Mindfulness City, the Gyelephu Mindfulness City, is a royal vision. It's a vision of His Majesty the King. And when His Majesty the King starts something, there's a lot of thought that goes into it, a lot of consultation that goes into it. And when we begin the journey, we have always reached our destination. So in that sense, it's not a bet. How is it different from other initiatives of this type? Well, there are many cities around the world, new cities, but many of, and all of them will serve a purpose. They are also intended for the greater good. But that said, I do believe that many of the cities, their development will eventually be taken over by market forces. because that is the way most of our countries operate also. This city is based on the ideals and principles of cross-national happiness. Technology will not be an end. Economic growth will not be an end. They will be a means to better living among people and better living in harmony among people, but also people with Mother Nature.
You mentioned gross national happiness. That's a concept that Bhutan has championed and the world is trying to learn from it. But I understand that there have been economic challenges as well. Has that shaken your trust in the system?
No. Firstly, Palki, Bhutan has not championed gross national happiness. Gross national happiness is a development philosophy that we believe in and we implement for ourselves. So we are not a champion as such. Gross national happiness has succeeded beyond our wildest dreams and expectations. I remember that just a generation ago, my parents, they grew up in a society that was literally medieval. And within one generation, almost every child who is in school, who should be in school, is in school. Literacy rates are very high. Life expectancy rates have reached unprecedented levels. And all this because of free education, free healthcare, while also protecting our culture and preserving our environment. And the kicker is that we have a democracy that is vibrant, robust, and that has been imposed by our kings, not demanded by the people. So these are results of the fruits of gross national happiness. One of the fruits is economic growth also. Economic growth is very important, but it must be balanced with social progress and culture, environment, and good governance. In the area of economic growth also, we've enjoyed a slow progress. Our economy is largely equitably distributed, and it is still very environmentally sustainable. However, economic growth has not kept pace with social progress. And as a result, yes, there is unemployment. Our children, many of our youth are seeking for better opportunities abroad. And so we know we've got to do a lot more. I know that I have my work cut out in developing our economy and developing our economy while also being mindful and true to the values and ideals of GNH.
I think the world is learning from Bhutan on how it's important to balance the two. Coming back to the relationship with India, when Prime Minister Modi took over in his first term in 2014, Bhutan was the first country that he visited. And as he wrapped up his second term, Bhutan was the last country that he visited, and that too in the middle of the election season. And that shows New Delhi's commitment to this relationship. How much of a difference does this sort of a personal outreach and touch make to equations between two countries?
It's important, but what's more important is to understand and to acknowledge why Bhutan, why the neighborhood. India is assuming its rightful place as a world leader. Yet Prime Minister Modi has repeatedly shown that the neighborhood matters, and that as far as Bhutan is concerned, Bhutan matters very much. It was a huge honor to receive him on his first overseas trip outside India in his first stint as Prime Minister. And then in his second tenure, his last visit was also to Bhutan. And on our part, well, ministers and prime ministers visit India frequently, but significantly, His Majesty the King visits India. And this has led to even stronger relations between the two countries. This is what nurturing friendship is all about.
But there is a perception that India is drifting away from its neighbours. Do you share that perception, or do you think it's exaggerated?
Yes and no. If there is a perception that India is, you said, growing away, possibly economically. Economically, India has grown very quickly. By now, it should have been a $5 trillion economy had it not been for COVID. Had it not been for COVID, India would be the third largest economy in the world already, a $5 trillion economy. But it's going to get to $5 trillion really soon. And then you are well on your way to a $30 trillion economy. The question is, what about the neighbors? Are we going to progress with India? And that's the second part of the question. India has always been mindful of its neighbors. Prime Minister Modi has made absolutely has said his focus is on the neighborhood first policy. And this is why during his swearing in 2014, the neighborhood was here. 2019, the neighborhood was here. Yesterday, the 2024, the neighborhood is here. And I can see this continuing. But it's not just during the swearing in. I mean, India hosts the BRICS summit and invites the neighborhood. I was here. India hosts G20, invites the neighborhood. So it's very, very clear and it's very established time and time again that for the Indian government and in particular Prime Minister Modi, the neighborhood matters and matters a great deal.
If there were three things that India and Bhutan should be working on urgently under the new government, what would those be, according to you?
With India and Bhutan, we have already a lot on our plate. And Prime Minister Modi, when he visited Bhutan just barely 2.5 months ago, he announced a range of initiatives, including an economic stimulus package to the tune of 1,500 crores, and then also assistance for a 13th five-year plan that begins later this month. At the end of June, it'll begin. And the assistance we are receiving is 8,500 crores. Added to that, we have hydropower corporation. And then Prime Minister Modi has given his full support to the Gelifu Mindfulness City. And we have a lot to do together. So in terms of investments, I would like to work a lot more with Indian investors to see how we can partner. And like I said earlier, to ensure that we also do our own part to grow while India grows. We don't want to be left behind. The other area where we need to pay special attention on is climate change. Now, obviously that India and Bhutan can't do, but India can play a leadership role globally. In the region, yes, but also globally in fighting climate change. The third area I think is critical, is very important for the region, is UN reforms and India's assumption of a permanent seat in the UN Security Council. I think that's very important. I've called for UN reforms and India's membership to the UN Security Council as a permanent member on 2 occasions at the General Assembly. But I think that we actually do need a strategy in the region because this will benefit not just India but the region. So these are the 3 things I would focus on.
So you mentioned climate change and you mentioned that India can do a lot more on climate change. How do you assess India's contribution so far? Because Prime Minister Modi has worked on the Solar Alliance and so on and so forth. Of course, as a developing country, we can do a lot more. But as a net zero emissions country, what would your advice be to India and the world?
We are not net zero, we are net negative.
No.
Yeah? And we don't have any advice, but India has done so much. Firstly, in terms of solar energy and renewable energy, India is a champion, a role model, an example to the world. And now the push to electric vehicles. And I can see a transition to green energy happening very soon. So I think that India has done a lot, and I think will do a lot more. Vis-a-vis Bhutan, economically, our biggest partnership is in the area of hydropower. All our hydropower is green. It is eventually green energy from fast-flowing rivers, sustainable rivers. And our cooperation is mainly in that field economically. And the amount of energy we generate is big in Bhutanese terms, but it can get and will get a lot bigger. And that's going to generate a lot of green energy for use in Bhutan and in India.
Right. I have a lot of questions, but I think we'll take it in the second conversation because I understand that you have very limited time and a packed schedule. So thank you very much, Prime Minister.
Second conversation?
Yes.
In Bhutan.
I look forward to that. Thank you for your time and insights.
Thank you. Thank you.
All the best.